Hello everyone, my name is Heather and welcome to the channel Bookables. Today I'm here to do a little bit of a different type of video. Today I'm going to share with you some of my all-time favorite young adult books. I know, it's weird. I feel like I've been talking a lot about young adult books lately, and so I wanted to kind of keep that going because while I don't read young adult anymore really, I do sporadically, I still have a lot of favorites that I want to recommend to talk about, so that's what this video is. If you don't know, I have been on this channel for over 10 years. If you can't believe it, neither can I. And I started out with over half of that journey reading pretty much primarily young adult. Like I read a lot of young adult. It was my first ever genre love. I just loved it. I read every genre under the sun when it came to young adult. Like I read different ones, and that's what this video is going to be all about. I'm going to share with you some of my favorite young adult books, and I'm going to break it down to different genres I've read, recommending 3 within that kind of subgenre, if you will. So hopefully this will help you out in case you want to like just read YA more, or maybe just kind of be a little bit pickier about which YA books you want to read, and with the subgenres will help out. But like I said, I've read a ton, and this is not even near the list I could talk about with the young adult books favorites that I have, but it's just a start. You know, if you want to see more detailed ones like my all-time favorite YA fantasy or my all-time favorite YA sci-fi, YA thrillers, just let me know. I could dedicate a whole video to it because chances are I probably have a long list because I've read a lot of them. But either way, I hope this will kind of, you know, help somebody out maybe that wants to read just maybe a few YA here and there. So my first subgenre is my first subgenre ever love when it comes to YA, and that is contemporary. I feel like I was kind of known for that back in the day as contemporary. If you want some YA contemporary, ask because chances are I've read them all. So I have like 4 because I couldn't narrow down this one. This one was way too hard for me. One of my all-time favorites, The Sun Is Also a Star by Nicola Yoon. This one I actually listened to, which I would recommend. I don't say that a lot because I don't listen to a lot of audiobooks, but this one, so good. It takes place in one day, super fast read, and it's about a characters named Natasha and Daniel. And Natasha, basically, her family is having to move back to Jamaica, I believe, because they're, you know, here illegally, and she doesn't believe in true love. Then she meets Daniel like on the street, and they kind of start talking, and he's like, you know, there's this article that says you can fall in love in a day, and they're like, let's test it out. And it goes through their adventure of her last day in New York City while also like testing out the love theory, and it is so cute. It's heartwarming. It's a little bit like sad too, but overall it's amazing. Next up, you want something a little lighter, a little summery. Alex Approximately by Jen Bennett will do you no wrong. This is one of my favorite YA contemporaries of all time. The cover alone is just amazing. This is about a character named Bailey, and she is obsessed with classic movies. She's on this movie forum where she talks to her friend Alex all the time, and she does not tell Alex that she is moving to where he lives in this like small beachy town in California because she's moving in with her dad. She's like, I'm just not gonna tell him. And so she moves there. She starts to work at this like museum where she meets a security guard named Porter, I believe. And they kind of have this hate-love relationship going on. And as months go by, she's like, should I tell Alex I'm here? Should I meet him in real life? Will that burst the bubble? And it's very much like a young adult You've Got Mail. I loved it, highly recommended, amazing for summertime. Then we have another book that takes place in 24 hours, Today, Tonight, and Tomorrow by Rachel Lynn Solomon, one of my favorite young adult authors. I don't love her adult romances nearly as much as I love her young adult contemporaries. This book is about 2 characters, Rowan and Neil, and basically they have been fighting all high school to be the valedictorian, and here it is, the last day of high school. I believe that Rowan loses to Neil, if I'm not mistaken. And every year the seniors play like this game where it's like a scavenger hunt type of game, and somehow Rowan and Neil are paired up and they're like mortal enemies for some reason. And of course, as the night goes on, they work together, maybe feelings happen, maybe they realize, I don't hate you after all. And it's super fun. This one reminded me a lot of 10 Things I Hate About You because it takes place in Seattle, and in fact they go to a lot of the places that movie was in, which if you don't know is my favorite movie of all time. And it's just a super cute book that I always recommend. The last one I'm sure a lot of you have heard about, and that is Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter. The cover is gorgeous. Why I lent this out and never got it back, I will never know, but you live, you learn. Either way, I forget the character's name in this book, so please forgive me. We have a character, she loves movies. In fact, every chapter header has a quote from a different rom-com, which I love rom-coms, guilty pleasure all the time. Not even guilty, I don't care. I'll shut up from the rooftops. I love rom-coms. Either way, she loves rom-coms, and she learns that a boy that she has been crushing on for forever is moving back to town, and she's like, oh my gosh, I need to get him to notice me. And so she enlists her neighbor that she's always kind of loathed to help her out, and you can guess what happens from there. It is super cute and it's super adorable. Super cute, super adorable. You get what I'm saying. Now let's say you want to take a walk on a different side of contemporary. You don't want the light, fluffy stuff. You want some hard-hitting ones that'll make you sob. I got you covered. A Heart in the Body of the World by Deb Coletti is intense and sob-worthy for sure. This one follows a character named Annabelle, and something very tragic has happened in Annabelle's life. You as a reader do not know. As you progress in the story, you will figure out, but you can probably put two and two together. It's a lot of triggers in it. And basically she decides that she is going to run cross country to DC to like kind of make her name known and make her cause just. And so the whole book is about her running, and it's not like Forrest Gump where he just runs straight, you know what I'm saying? She actually takes breaks, and like, you know, her grandpa follows her in the RV, and you know, she'll run for the day, come in and go to sleep. Either way, it is so emotional, so hard-hitting, and so impactful. I recommend anyone read this. Like, if you don't even like YA, this is an amazing book. We have Clap When You Land by Elizabeth Acevedo. Elizabeth Acevedo writes some hard-hitting stuff. Clap When You Land is my favorite book by her. This one is told from two points of view, one by Kamino and one named Yahara. Hopefully I have that right. Basically, they share the same dad and they don't know it. So Kamino lives in the Dominican Republic, and every summer her dad comes. She lives with her grandmother and she's just so excited. She feels like a family. Everything's going great. Then we follow Yahira, who lives in New York with her mom, and her dad always goes away for the summer, and she's like, I don't know why, like what's going on. And then this is based on a story, like an actual plane crash that happened. Their dad dies in a plane crash, and they learn about the existence of each other. They never knew that each of them had a sister. And so basically the book's about them grieving the loss of their father while also gaining a sister that they never knew they had. Also while knowing that the father's kind of leading duplicate lives, if you will. And it's a very emotional and hard-hitting book that is so worth it. Elizabeth Acevedo writes beautifully. I don't need to tell you that. If you've read her books, you know. This one's my favorite. I love it. We have another one of my favorite YA authors, Robin Benway, Far From the Tree. Gosh, if you want a book about found families, this is the one for you. So this one follows a slew of characters. We have Grace, Maya, and Joaquin, and they're all siblings, but they don't know it. So Grace is an only child who's adopted at birth, and she discovers that she's a middle child after all, with this new sibling she has. And so she goes looking for her biological family, and she meets Maya. So she's also adopted, and she doesn't really feel like she belongs with her family. And then we have Joaquin, who is the oldest of all these three, and he has been to foster home to foster home to foster home. And finally he's at one where he really likes the foster family, but he's older, so they don't know, so he doesn't know if they'll adopt him. And basically these three siblings actually meet up and realize that they're siblings and go look for their biological mother together. And it's from there learning about found families while learning about the blood that you do share with your actual family. And it is a beautiful, beautiful book. Like, I sobbed on this one. I love Robin Benway. Any Robin Benway book you can read, I recommend. They're all great. I also love Emmy and Oliver by her, but this one is just so beautiful and so hard-hitting. So there we have contemporary out of the way. Let's move on to my other genre love that I loved back in the day, which was fantasy. Ember in the Ashes series by Sabaa Tahir. This might be my favorite YA fantasy series. I loved it. I loved it. It does not nearly get enough attention as it deserves. I am obsessed with it. This one is so hard to explain. So it's about multiple characters, Laia, Elias, and Helene, which Helene's my favorite, which everyone's least favorite is Helene, but I loved Helene. But either way, I'm just going to read you the back of the book because I feel like it's going to be best if I said that, and it's so long. Under the martial empire, defiance is met with death. Laia and her family do not challenge the empire. They've seen what happens to those who do. But when Laia's brother is arrested for treason, she is forced to make a decision. In exchange for help from rebels who promise to rescue her brother, she will risk her life to spy from them within the empire's greatest military academy. There, Laia meets Elias, the school's finest soldier, and secretly its most unwilling. He and Laia will soon realize that their destinies are intertwined and that their choices will change the fate of the empire itself. So good, so intense, very political things going on, and it's a book that'll make you sob. Like, Sabaa Tahir is not afraid to go there. Like, the last book in the series, I freaking sobbed like a baby because she is not afraid to take risk when it comes to war and stuff, if you get what I'm saying. It's a series that I love and adore and will always shout from the rooftops how amazing it is. Next up, we have the Folk of the Air series by Holly Black. This one was very popular when it came out, and I still feel like it's pretty popular. It's a good one. It's an easy one. It's an easy one to dive into fantasy, because sometimes fantasy can be pretty heavy. Like this one, it's a lot of info, and it can be a lot sometimes. This one is easier. So this book, we follow a character named Jude, who was 7 when her parents were murdered, and her and her 2 sisters were stolen away to live in the court of fairy. And so she's a human living in the fae world. And now she is trying to win a place at court, and there she meets Carden, who is like the prince of fairies and who is the worst jerk ever. And it kind of goes from there. It's a great hate to love romance, great fairy representation, because fairies, I've read in a lot of books, are just, they're not nice. But either way, this one is amazing. I know kind of a sequel came out to it recently called The Stolen Heir, where we follow her younger brother in it, but it's a fun one. I will say it's not like that serious or intense, but it's a fun, like kind of fantasy romance, if you will. And of course, we could talk about Sarah J Maas. I feel kind of weird talking about her in young adult books, because while her 2 first series were young adult, I don't really feel like they were. We have the Throne of Glass series, which I have read. I enjoy it. I don't love it as much as I think I used to, but it's a good one. It's like kind of like Ember in the Ashes, if you will. We have one character, she's trying to fight for her like kind of queendom, like her throne, if you will. That's a good one. But my favorite of hers, probably a lot of people's favorite, is the ACOTAR series. This one, I don't know why it's classified as young adult. I really don't know why. Like, it should not be. It should be more young adult. If it's fixed by now, let me know. But either way, this one's about a character named Farah, and she kills a wolf in the woods, and she has to be taken to the fairy courts, where she meets Fairy Tamlin, and she may fall in love with him, but don't be fooled. I'm sure if you've heard about this series, you've heard about this series. Am I a sucker for this series? Abso-freaking-lutely. So I'm just gonna throw that out there quickly. Moving on to sci-fi. I don't read much sci-fi, but I do have a few favorites that I've read in the young adult genre that I love. First up being the Lumini series by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. This is an amazing series. It's a great audiobook as well. In fact, I would say if you can, dare you have the time to listen to it and actually read along, because this is a mixed media book. This book is full of transcripts, full of like audio files, full of drawings and things like that. It is just mixed media format, and it makes it so much fun. This one is just, I don't know how to explain this one either. It says the year is 2575, and 2 rival mega corporations are at war over a planet, and we follow Katie and Ezra, who are on different ships, and basically one of the ship's AIs may be taking over, which is so terrifying. But this is such a fun series. It has 3 books in it. You can fly through them all. Trust me, they're worth it. So much fun. In case you're also not big on sci-fi because you're not the best with jargon, like myself, this one's super easy, super amazing. We have the Scythe series, or Arc of a Scythe series by Neil Shusterman. Another one of my favorite series of all time. This one is maybe even dystopian, if you will. I'm just putting in the sci-fi because I can. It says a world with no hunger, no disease, no war, no misery. So no deaths, basically. So what happens in this kind of world is they have scythes who kill people. Now, each scythe is different in their style. Some people will pick randomly. Some people will pick other people that have been alive too long. And basically in this book, we follow 2 characters that are young that get selected to be a scythe. They have to train, and Citra and Rowan are chosen to apprentice a scythe. And so it's basically, it says the teens must master the art of taking life, knowing that the consequence of failure could mean losing their own. This is very impactful, very thought-provoking, and just such a good time. I love this series, would highly recommend it. My last category I have to share with you is thriller / spooky. So these are great kind of young adult thrillers. In case you don't want really intense scares, these one will do you no wrong. Sadie by Courtney Summers is amazing. Again, another audiobook that is phenomenal. This one is a podcast as well. So in this book, we have a character named West, who is a podcast host, and basically he learns about Sadie, who has gone missing. Sadie's sister just recently died, and she knows that her sister was murdered, and she knows who's done it. So she decides to go off and get revenge for her sister. Meanwhile, we have Wes kind of behind her, and he's podcasting every kind of different step she takes. He's like 5 steps behind her. So you get Sadie's perspective as she's going out for vengeance, and then we have Wes's perspective as he's making this podcast and trying to piece together what Sadie already knows and what she's figuring out. It is amazing. It is fun. It's a great thriller. Then if you want one that's perfect for October, Horrid by Katrina Leno is amazing. Like, I love this book. It's definitely much more horror YA, I would say. It's about a character named Jane who, her and her mom just recently lost their father, and they don't really know what to do. So they also learn that they recently lost Jane's grandmother. So her mom has inherited her house in New England, and that's where she grew up. And so they move cross country to go move into this house. And Jane has never heard her mom talk about this house, talk about this town, talk about her mom. And the house is a little bit weird. Things are happening, you know. It's not in the best condition, okay? And so, you know, things are starting to happen. And Jane's like, what is going on? Like, who is my mother? And it says, she discovers that the storage room Ruth has kept locked up for storage isn't storage at all. It's a little girl's bedroom left untouched for years and not quite as empty of the inhabitants as it appears. And it is a creepy, creepy one. Perfect for fall. Perfect. Then we have A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson, another popular series that again has to do with podcast. I love podcast and thriller books. Perfect combination. This book is about a character named Pippa, I believe, who decides to do kind of her senior project on like this murder trial that happened in her town, where this guy was accused of, where another senior a long time ago was accused of killing his girlfriend, only he said he never did it. And then eventually he does end up taking his own life, and Pippa is determined to kind of prove his innocence. So she teams up with his younger brother, and they kind of just try to figure out what happened that night that his girlfriend was murdered, like who actually did it. And it is a fun series. It's a great podcast one. Highly recommend. And then the last one kind of fits in with fantasy, but I feel like it's more spooky. The Wicked Deep by Shea Earnshaw. I love this one. It is a great atmospheric book that is perfect for fall. This book follows this town called Sparrow, and it says 2 centuries ago, 3 sisters were sentenced to death for witchery. Stones were tied to their ankles and they were drowned in the deep waters. Now, every summer, they come back and they steal the bodies of 3 local girls and they lure boys to their death in the water. Like, it is creepy. Love Shea Earnshaw books. If you want a spooky, fun time, they'll do you awesome. There we have a lot of young adult recommendations. Are you tired yet of hearing them all? Because I listed out a lot, and I could have a lot more. Like I said, if you want more specific recommendations within subgenres of YA, please let me know. I'll be more than happy to do so. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video.